Shabbos, we're up to Daf Nun Zayin, which is the first Daf in the 6th chapter, Parak Bameh Isha. This chapter discusses the items which a person is allowed to wear in the street on Shabbos. Now, we had learned in the previous chapter about the items that an animal may go out with. Now we discuss people. Now, the issue with people are as follows. We're not allowed to carry anything, but we are allowed to wear anything which counts as an article of clothing or some sort of apparel. That includes clothing that are being worn. It also includes anything which functions as clothing, such as jewelry or adornments. The way we define wearing is that something is called a garment, it's called an article of clothing or apparel if it serves the body. It protects the body, it's clothing for the body, or it's an adornment for the body. It cannot be that you're just wearing something by means of carrying it. That you need to carry something, so you do so by wearing it. That doesn't count as wearing, that counts as carrying. So the question here is, what items count as clothing or jewelry so they can be carried? Now actually, the first four Mishnayos of the Parak will list items that one is not allowed to carry, and the last five will list items that one is allowed to wear. That one is not allowed to wear. And the last five Mishnayos will list items that one is allowed to wear. The issue over here in this first Mishnah is not so much that the items that are listed in it are not considered to be serving the body. They are adornments. These are all adornments. And therefore, midoraisa, there is no prohibition to wear these in the street. All these fall into a different category. They are adornments, they are jewelry, they do serve the body. However, they're forbidden for a different reason. And that is that there is a gzeira derabanan, a rabbinic prohibition to wear them, because they're the type of things that a person may take off. And there may be different reasons why a person may take these things off. So the first Mishnah refers to a woman's jewelry. And most of the things here, she may take off because they're expensive, they're valuable, and they're pretty, and she'll want to show them to her friend. Now, in a situation where somebody takes something off in the street, the Chachamim were aware that they may forget to put it back on before they start to walk, and they may end up walking 4 amos, which would be an Issa D'Oraisa. So, therefore, they said you cannot wear these things in the street at all, because you may come to take them off. Now, there is some that they not only did they said you can't wear it in the street, they said you can't even wear it in your yard, because if you wear it in your yard, you'll walk out the door of the yard, you'll be in the street, and then the rest will be history, you'll end up carrying it. So let's start the Mishnah, let's see the list of things. There will be two reasons here why you may take things off. One of them will be because they're expensive, that's the majority of these. There'll be a few things here that a woman may take off if she needs to go to the mikvah because they're chatzitza. The Gemara will expand upon that in the rest of the daf. And then later in the daf we'll get to Hilchas Chatzitza more deeply. So the Mishnah starts with this list, and it says the following things that a woman may not wear in the street. We start with women's jewelry, that's more prevalent. She should not wear 3 types of hairbands. So these are threads of wool, threads of linen, or ribbons that she may wear in her hair. Now Rashi learns that these are braided into the hair decoration. The Tosfos learns that these are the bands that she uses to hold her hair together. Now, the Mishnah then throws in a halacha, and the reason, and she also cannot wear these when she is going to the mikvah. They would be chatzitza. They block the water from reaching her hair unless she makes them loose. Okay, continuing with the list, she can't wear various types of jewelry that are attached to her head covering. Right? This is referring to married women who covered their hair because that is the halacha. As long as they're not sewn to her head covering. If they're sewn down, there's no concern that she may take them off to show her friend because she can't take off her hair covering and they're sewn to her hair covering. Okay, the next thing she can't wear is something called a chavul. The Gemara will define what that is. It is a type of cap which was an adornment, it's jewelry. And this one, the Mishnah says, it's only a problem to go into the street. Rashi understands that means that the ones up to now she shouldn't even wear in the courtyard. Rashi even says she shouldn't even wear it in the house. Right? Because we're concerned that she may end up carrying these into the street. She'll just walk out with it on and not realize that she has them on. Now, others learn that the only problem here is the yard, but this particular one on the list anyway, the kavol, it's only a problem in the street. She's allowed to wear it in the yard. Rashi, who understands that anything which she's not allowed to wear in the yard, she's not allowed to wear it in the house, explains the reason she can't wear it. In the reason that they allowed her to wear this particular object everywhere except for the street itself, so she should be able to wear at least some adornments on Shabbos, so she shouldn't feel like she is not pretty. Okay, the next thing on the list of things that you shouldn't wear on the street is something called City of Gold, which is a clasp of some sort that had the likeness of Yerushalayim on it. She also shouldn't wear a katla. The Gemara will explain that. It seems to be a choker, a very tight necklace. Now, she's also not allowed to wear nose rings. Again, all these things she may take off to show to her friend, and she shouldn't wear a ring that is a ring just, meaning a finger ring that's just for decoration, and it has no seal. The rings with a seal on it that people would use to stamp the wax when they seal their letter, that is forbidden to wear in the street midaraisa, because that's carrying, that's not serving the body at all, just being carried around on the finger. Now, she also shouldn't wear a pin, which is for decoration, because again she may show it to somebody. If it's a needle, she certainly shouldn't wear them. That would be also daraisa. That's not part of this list, because again she's just carrying around the needle. Now, all these things are only asa d'Rabbanan, as we have said. Okay, now the Gemara's first question is, why does the Mishnah throw in that these hair ribbons or strings, these hair bands, cannot be worn into the mikvah? They're chatzitza. What does it have to do with anything over here? So the Gemara says, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, very simple what it has to do over here. The whole reason she can't wear it on Shabbos is because she can't wear it into the mikvah. It's chatzitza, and she may need to go to the mikvah on Shabbos, and therefore she'll take them off. If she take them off, she'll forget to put them back on, because she doesn't need to wear them. She could carry them, then she'll end up carrying them home, and that would be carrying. That's why we said she can't wear them on Shabbos. Okay, now the Gemara wants to know, what about hairbands that are made of linked chains? This is chains of thread, not chains of metal. And these are not so tight that they block the water from reaching the hair, so it's not a chatzitza. So the question that Rav Kana asks Rav is, are these forbidden for her to wear or not? They're not chatzitza. She could theoretically wear them into the mikvah. So the question is, do we say that no, she can't wear any hairbands, or she's allowed to wear these? So Rav answered, no, she's allowed to. The only thing that they did not make any isser on woven things, because the water can get through. There's no problem. Now the Gemara quotes a supported statement of Rav Huna, braid of Yeshua, and the Gemara has two versions of what he said. He's supporting this idea that a woman is allowed to wear these woven hairbands, and the first version he says that he's allowed to wear them, like we said, because it's woven, and there's no problem. There is no decree against woven hairbands. The second version is of Huna Braid of Yeshua said, you're allowed to wear them because I saw that my sisters don't bother taking them off when they go into the bath, and therefore I know that women don't care if they wear them into the water, so it's not a problem. Now, the Gemara asks, what's the difference between these two things? What's the difference if you say that the reason why the women can wear it is because Chazal didn't make Xera on it, or if the reason why the women are allowed to wear it is because women always wear it into the water? So the Gemara says, the difference will be if you have one which is dirty, it's got mud on it, okay? So if the problem is, if the reason why the women are allowed to wear it is because Chazal didn't make any Xera on it, so whether it's dirty or it's not dirty, they didn't make Xera, therefore you're allowed to wear it. The women are allowed to wear it, it's not a problem. If, however, the second version, that the only reason that we're allowed to wear this is because he saw that women don't mind using these in the bath, they don't mind wearing them while they bathe, so if they're dirty, women will not wear them while they bathe. They'll make their hair dirty, and also if they have to go to the mikvah, they will make themselves be dirty. So they wouldn't wear it, and therefore they would take it off, and therefore we would have to say that they should not wear it in the street, lest they have to go to the mikvah and end up taking it off and carrying it. Once we're on the subject of these strings and ribbons that were worn, and whether or not they are chatzitza, they block the water of the mikvah, the Gemara quotes a Mishnah on the subject from Maseches Mikvahs, and the Gemara will discuss the Mishnah at length. So the Mishnah has an apparent machlokes. It has a Tanakama and it has a Rabbi Yehuda discussing which strings and straps are chatzitza. So the Tanakama says that wool strings, linen strings, and the ribbons, meaning the same things which we discussed in our Mishnah here, wool, linen, and ribbons, all these things are chatzitza. Rabbi Yehuda says, listen, I argue with you about wool is not chatzitza, and he says another halacha, that hairbands made out of woven hair is not a chatzitza. We don't know what the Tanakh holds about that. The Gemara will discuss that later. But first we're going to discuss what the Tanakam had said. He said that wool strands, linen strands, and these ribbons are chatzitza. Rav Huna says it's only if it's worn on the head of a girl. So Gemara says only on the head and not where. Where are they not a chatzitza? So Gemara says, Rav Yosef says, not on the neck. On the neck, it's not a chatzitza. So the Gemara wants to know why not. Who says why should it not be a chatzitza on the neck? If all these things are chatzitza on the hair, and a hair is a stiff, hard material, and it's more likely for water to get through because the wrapping around it doesn't sink in. So if you say that these wraparounds, these ribbons and strings block the water from getting to hair, certainly if it's worn around the soft skin of the neck, it should block the water from sinking in, because it should block the water from reaching the neck, because these strings and ribbons will sink into the skin of the neck and block the water. So Gemara says, Rav Yosef explains himself that it's not a chatzitza on the neck because women don't tie things tightly around their neck. They don't want to choke, so therefore it's loose, and therefore the water can get through. So Gemara says, is that so? But I have a brisa that says clearly that what women wear on their necks is a chatzitza. Apparently they do tie it very tightly. There's a brisa that says that strings in the ears that are stuck into the holes that women use to pierce the ears, those aren't chatzitza, but the strings around their necks, those are chatzitza. Those you're not allowed to wear on Shabbos, obviously, because you take them off when you go to the mikvah. So Gemara says that's talking about something else. That's talking about a different type of string. That's talking about these wide straps the women used to tie around their necks, and they tied them very tightly because they wanted the flesh of the neck to bulge outward so that they would look fat. It was considered beautiful to be well fed and fat and healthy, and therefore they tied those straps very tightly, and they weren't concerned for choking because they were wide, so the straps weren't thin that sunk into the neck. However, these things which our Mishnah is discussing, they do sink into the neck, and they would choke the woman, therefore she doesn't wear them drawn tightly. Okay, now the Gemara moves on to the discussion between the Tanakama and Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda had said that hair bands made out of hair themselves, woven strands of hair, Rav Yehuda had said that that's not a chatzitza. So the Gemara says the halacha is like Rav Yehuda. The Gemara says halacha is like Rav Yehuda. Who says that the Tanakama argues? So the Gemara says, what do you mean? For sure he argues. If he didn't argue, why would Rav Yehuda have to say what he says? Obviously the Tanakama argues. The Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Rav Yehuda argues about wool. And the reason why he said that hair is not a chatzitza is because he meant to say as follows. Just like you agree with me, Tanakama, that hair bands made out of hair are not chatzitza, you should also agree with me that hair bands made out of wool are not chatzitza. Meaning, their argument was clearly over wool. We don't know what the Tanakama said about hair. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda just quoted hair because he wanted to prove and support his position that the wool strings are not a chatzitza, which we know he argued with the Tanakama about. The Gemara says, now I'll even prove to you that this is the truth, that the Tanakama agrees that strands of hair are not a chatzitza. Woven hair bands made from hair are not a chatzitza. Because first of all, there's a brisa that says so clearly. There's one that says that the Tanakama says that the only ones that are chatzitza are wool, linen, and all those things, but if they're made out of hair, it's not a chatzitza. And I can even prove it from another Mishnah in Masechah Shabbos. A Mishnah that says a woman's allowed to go out into the street with hairbands made out of hair, whether they're made out of her hair or somebody else's hair. That's all the Mishnah says. Now, who do you think this Mishnah is? If it's Rabbi Yehuda, so then it shouldn't just say hairbands; it should say wool bands too. Because Rabbi Yehuda holds even wool is not a chatzitza, and even wool she's allowed to wear in the street. But the only thing it says is hair. Obviously, it's not Rabbi Yehuda. It must be the Tanakama, and it clearly says that hair bands made out of hair are permitted, but not ones that are made out of wool. And the Gemara accepts this as a conclusive proof. The Gemara now proceeds to define a number of the items mentioned in the Mishnah that a woman should not wear out in the street or in the yard because of concern she may take them off and carry them. She would take them off to show to her friend because they're fancy. So the first thing that the Gemara wants to understand is something called a totefes. Totefes, what's that? So the Gemara first says, Rav Yosef says it's a type of charm that they wore against an ayin hara, against an evil eye. So the Gemara says that should be okay. We said that you're allowed to wear an amulet, you're allowed to wear a kameya against disease as long as you know that it works. And this thing apparently works, so what's the problem? Somebody says, okay, it's not what it is. What it really is a type of thing called an apuzainu, which the Gemara will describe in a minute. And the Gemara proves that from a brisa that says that a woman is allowed to wear a totefes, and she's allowed to attach it to a hat, which is made out of gold. She's allowed to wear that, even though it's expensive. Even though these two things are expensive, she won't take them off, so she doesn't uncover her hair. And she's allowed to wear sarvitin. Sarvitin was also mentioned in the Mishnah. So the Gemara wants to know now, what are these things? So the Gemara says, totefes was an ornament that she wore. It wrapped around the front of the head from ear to ear, kind of like tefillin. Tefillin are called a totefos in the Torah. So it was a ornament on the forehead or above the forehead. And sarvitin they kind of hang from the head covering and hang on the sides or on her cheeks. And the Gemara says if she was rich, they were made out of silver or gold, and if she was poor, then they were made out of colored cloth. Okay, so that's what totefes and sarvitin are. The Gemara wants to know, what's a chavul? The Mishnah had mentioned chavul. So Gemara says, Gemara has a machlokes about it, which continues into the next daf. Gemara's first opinion is Rav Yanai, who says there are two things called kavul. I don't know which one it refers to. Kavul usually refers to a slave's emblem, a kind of a symbol that a slave wore on his clothing to show that he's a slave. That's what we're referring to here. When we said a woman can't wear that, we're referring to a maidservant, a slave woman. The other pshat, if we don't want to limit this to slaves, would be the less likely usage of the term kavul, and that it refers to a kind of cap that women wore. It was like a cloth hat that women wore under their primary hat, under their main head covering, and it stuck out around the sides, and it was very pretty, so it was like an ornament. Now, if it refers to that, it also refers to the other thing. The question is, does it also refer to this or not? So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yani says he doesn't know which one it is, and Rabbi Avo says it's more likely that it's the cap, not the slave thing, because we have the brisa that says as follows. It says that a woman is allowed to wear a kavol or an istama in the yard. We're going to see what an istama is in a minute. She's allowed to wear a kavol or an istama, but she shouldn't wear it in the street. Rav Shimon ben Elazar says she is allowed to wear it in the street, because since she wears it under her hat, she's not likely to take it off, because she can't put it back on without uncovering her hair, and she doesn't want to uncover her hair. So you see, it's something that you wore under your hat, so that's why it makes sense to say that it's that cap that she wore under her main head covering. Okay, now we mentioned an istama, so let's see what an istama is. So Rabbi Avo says that is a bizyoine. Gemara says, great, what's a bizyoine? Sabai says it's a kalya paruche. What's a kalya paruche? The Gemara doesn't ask that. The Gemara assumes you know what a kalya paruche means. It means that it destroys the things that fly, or holds back things that fly. Mechaks is showing him what it means. Rashi says it's a little scarf that was tied around the head to cover the hair that didn't fit into the hair net, the hair covering. And other Rishonim say it was a cloth that they hung in front of a kala, a bride, to keep away the insects. Now the Gemara ends off here. There are three halachos that we know about an istama, this kind of scarf thing. Number one is that it's not subject to hilchos shatnez, because it was made out of felt. Shatnez is not subject to felt. It's only if it's spun thread that's woven. Number two, it's not subject to tzaras, because there's a link between shatnez and tzaras. If it can't be shatnez, it can't get tzaras. And the last halacha is that kalas are allowed to wear it. There's a halacha that since the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, we did not allow kalas to wear crowns, metal crowns, but they are allowed to wear these cloth crowns because they're just cloth and they're not nearly as fancy.